What's going on, guys? Anti-hipster indie nerd here, and today is a special day for the channel. 2024 is fast approaching, so today we are going through my top 50 albums of 2023. As always, I have linked a playlist with my favorite song from each of these records in the description, so make sure you check that out. Gonna run through a couple honorable mentions and then do a speed run up to about album number 20, and then from there I will give you some more in-depth reviews. Starting with the honorable mentions, we have Nas's Magic 2. Just another great solid record all around from this new era of Nas. Then we have the danceable and groovy Volcano by Jungle. Model Act Trees with their debut dance punk album Dog's Body. Slowdive getting a little more experimental on Everything Is Alive. And finally we get a sophomore album from Panchico, Failed at Maths. Moving on to the real list, at number 50 we have Jane Remover delving deeper into her dystopian electronic world on Census Designated. At 49 we have the groovy electronic World of Hassle by Alan Palamo. 48 is the lyrical concept album Integrated Tech Solutions by Aesop Rock. 47 is the smooth and buttery Voir Dire by Earl Sweatshirt and The Alchemist. 46 is the Loveliest Time by Carly Rae Jepsen. So sugary, lots of different sounds on this one that all pay off. 45 is the first Billy Woods album on this list with Arm & Hammer, We Buy Diabetic Test Strips. It's so dark and gritty, plus I'm diabetic, so it really has a message that I can relate to. 44 is King Krul's Space Heavy, which is ironically his spaciest album yet. 43 is Anoni's Soulful But Bleak My Back Was a Bridge for You to Cross. 42 is the 90s-esque post-punk effort Food for Worms by Shame. At 41, Boy Genius proves they can create a great full-length LP with The Record. 40 is the noisy shoegaze effort Girl with Fish by Feeble Little Horse. Love the mix of indie folk and dream pop on here. 39 is the earwormy Guts by Olivia Rodrigo. Despite some lyrics that made me wince, the hooks and production make this a fantastic record, and most of the songwriting is actually really solid. 38 is the deeply personal Michael from Killer Mike, his first solo record in quite some time. 37 is the surprise Danny Brown record we got, Caranta. Definitely some of the most personal tracks I've heard from Danny. 36 is the insanely fun 10,000 gecs by 100 gecs. I think this is their most cohesive record so far, and I like the direction they're headed in. At 35, Lil Yachty completely reinvents himself with the psychedelic rock album Let's Start Here. 34 is the emotional Live from Bush Hall by Black Country New Road. I was really worried the band was going to take a hit when Isaac left, but they have not lost a single step, and it is awesome to see. 33 is Paranols After the Magic, and this album really is magic. The shoegaze passages on this record are enchanting, and I love the giant walls of sound that this record throws at us. 32 is Mitski's The Land Is Inhospitable and So Are We. Thought the country undertones were a very interesting direction for Mitski to go in, and it pays off really well. And on top of that, it has some of the best songwriting of the year. 31 is Tinashe's BB Angel. Very short and to the point record, but Tinashe does so much in so little time that it really works out. 30 is Young Fathers with Heavy Heavy. Don't really know what genre to classify this as, but there's some African influence and the whole thing is really kind of tribal to me. If that sounds interesting to you, definitely give this one a spin. 29 is the heartfelt country record Weather Vanes by Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit. 28 is the enchanting and mysterious Spelling in the Mystery School. I love the direction Spelling is going in. I don't love this record as much as the Turning Wheel, but it is still some of the most ambitious pop music we are getting. 27 is Indigo D'Souza's All of This Will End. Very depressing record overall, but a lot of messages on here that I think people would relate to. Indigo is definitely cementing herself as one of the best songwriters of the past few years. The greatest part about this record is that there's still so much that Indigo can experiment with, and I can't wait to see where she goes from here. 26 is Yule with Soft Scars. Nothing really new or crazy on this record. They just took a more rock-oriented approach, which I thought really fit their style. The hooks on it are enjoyable, the song progressions are enjoyable. It's one of my most listened to albums of the year, and I found myself coming back to it quite often. Into the top 25, we have Tizo Touchdown with How Do You Sleep at Night. Definitely one of the most unique albums to come out this year, mixing elements of hip-hop and pop and rock. It's just a fun genre blend with a funny and unique personality, and if that sounds interesting to you, Go give this one a listen. 24 is Jessie Ware's Disco Effort, That Feels Good. I swear Jessie Ware is the only person in the world that can get me into disco, but her songwriting and hook writing is just so much fun, and I love this record. 23 is Billy Woods with Maps. He returns to the list for his really interesting pop culture references. I never really know exactly what Billy is rapping about, but I'm able to sort of tie things together when he throws out these obscure references. His albums are kind of like puzzles, and I really enjoy that factor of them. 22 is Paramore's post-punk record, This Is Why. I didn't expect them to go in this direction after their latest album, After Laughter, but oddly enough, this is an even better direction for the band to take. I think these are some of Hayley Williams' best performances as a singer and writer, and I like how they were sort of able to take elements from the last record and put them into this one in a sort of grittier fashion. 21 is Kara Jackson's Why Does the Earth Give Us People to Love. This one definitely took a couple listens to click and get used to Kara's voice. However, once I got past that, I realized how unique and special this album was. Feel like a broken record, but once again, amazing songwriting, some of the best of the year. A lot of the ideas on this record are really ambitious for a singer-songwriter record, and that's why it's on here. Alright, top 20. As promised, we will go through these ones a little more in depth, starting with number 20, one of the most underrated albums of the year, Get Up Sequences Part 2 by the Go Team. I am shocked that I have not seen this on any year-end lists yet. It is one of the most fun and groovy pop albums of the year. Very reminiscent of like TLC, like that 90s sort of pop / R&B sound. There are also elements that sound sort of Jackson 5-esque, and I love that. I feel like we don't really hear those sounds revisited that often nowadays. The hooks are so earwormy and fun. I love a lot of the vocal performances on this. There are a couple tracks that feel a little bit out of place, but the ones that hit hard. And yeah, go give this one a listen, it's fun. At 19 is Travis Scott's Utopia. I will be honest, after hearing K-pop, I was not really excited for this album. I thought it was gonna flop and just not be that good. But luckily, Travis proved me very wrong. This whole album just feels like a blockbuster movie. It is so cinematic, and I feel like that's kind of what Trav was going for. It feels like he was going for that like grandiose, like My Beautiful Dark Fantasy type of Kanye album, and I feel like he really made that work while still keeping his own sound. I know a lot of people said that it sounds like a Kanye ripoff, but I really just think it's the influence coming through, and Travis is still making his own lane in this sort of rap / trap genre. I think I enjoy this record more than Astroworld, but I don't think I would put it above Rodeo, but nonetheless still another fantastic record to add to a pretty stacked discography for Travis. 18 is Foo Fighters, But Here We Are, a very emotional record after the Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins was found dead. You can really tell the band had something to say after this happened, because they came back with one of the most emotional and anthemic mainstream rock albums of the year. Honestly, this is probably the best mainstream rock album that has come out for a very long time. Like I said, it's super anthemic, and there are also a lot of really interesting risks taken, like on the song Show Me How, that sort of blends like dream pop with just regular mainstream rock, and it works really well. From Under You to the title track to the opening track, everything on here is a blast. You can really feel the emotion in everyone's performances, and it was a great send-off for Hawkins. 17 is Pink Pantheress with Heaven Knows. This album is just catchy song after catchy song. Every hook from this record is just ingrained into my mind, and it's another one on here simply for the fact that I just keep returning to it. I will also add that I think it's one of the best mixed and mastered albums I've heard this year. 16 is Key Glock's Glaucoma 2. This album is just so much fun, man. I love Key Glock's mic presence. He sounds super hungry on every track, and I listened to this record so much this year. You can listen to this in literally any circumstance, front to back. You can even put it on shuffle and it'll work. Whether you're cleaning your house, whether you're driving, whether you're going to the gym, throw this on, You'll enjoy it. 15 is Amare's Fountain Baby. The best way I can describe this album is it feels like I'm in this underwater nightclub on psychedelics. Amare does a fantastic job building the atmosphere and world of this album. It really feels like you're just taken to a whole nother planet here. The hooks are also super catchy despite being super repetitive, but I actually feel like this is an album where repetition plays in its favor. Check out Sociopathic Dance Queen to understand what I mean. 14 is A Man with Night Owl. This is essentially like a DJ mix with insane sample flips, and you'll understand how insane they are when you go listen to this. I'm sure you've heard a couple of them that are on this record. It is so danceable and really lives up to its name. It's a perfect record for a late night drive. 13 is Sampha with Lahai. I can't describe this record as anything other than a palate cleanser. It is some of the most beautiful R&B I've heard for a very long time, and I feel like it's just objectively good music. Like, this is something you can show to anyone and they'll be like, that was pretty cool. And it might incline them to go check out the rest of the record. 12 is Group Therapy's I Was Mature for My Age, But I Was Still a Child. There is so much personality on this little hip-hop / dance / industrial record. This trio plays with a lot of different sounds, and despite this being their debut, it already seems like they've mastered all of them. There's a chemistry here that I haven't heard since Brockhampton, and if you were a fan of Brockhampton, this group really reminds me of them. I'm really excited to see what they do next and sort of learn more about them. We got pretty big glimpses into each of their personalities on this record, but I feel like there's a lot they can expand on, and I'm expecting to see that in their next effort. 11 is Geese's 3D Country. I don't know exactly what genre you would classify this. I feel like it could fall under indie rock, it could fall under alt country, but despite that, the album is absolutely outrageous. The vocals are so unique. It feels like you are following this drunk dude across his road trip across the United States. But despite the odd drunk personality, there's a lot of introspection to be found on this album that you wouldn't expect. Alright, moving into my top 10 albums of the year. At 10, we have George Clanton's Urapaya. This is one of the most purposefully crafted nostalgic records I've ever heard. With elements of vaporwave, dream pop, and shoegaze, I feel like I've been teleported straight back into a 90s computer. Like, I didn't think music could make me feel like I was in the internet, but like, this record just gives me vibes of the early internet, and I can't explain why. It sort of reminds me of when PC music was becoming big and there was this like old 90s sort of PC aesthetic to it, and I kind of get the same vibes from this album. However, on top of that, the sounds blended together on this album sound amazing. Even George Clanton's vocals, which I wasn't that impressed with on his latest record, sound really good, and for the most part you can understand what he's saying despite being absolutely reverb soaked. At the end of this record, you'll be leaving with a ton of interesting, noisy, lush melodies in your head. Number 9 is Sufjan Stevens' Javelin. We all know what Sufjan is capable at this point. He's been in a game for a very long time now. Typically, you're gonna get just a very solid indie folk record, but on this one, he really elevates everything to the 100th degree. All the strings and guitar plucking and what have you is done so beautifully on this album. I also think from a writing standpoint, it is his most cohesive record since Carrie and Lowell. It's just the kind of music that like I want to share with my family. It reminds me of like Thanksgiving, and despite how sad a lot of the songs are, they are enjoyable to listen to. I would describe it as like campfire music. Like, this is the kind of thing I want to listen to when I go camping, when I want to drive through the mountains, when I want to spend a night out at the fire with my family. This is the album I'm putting on. And on top of that, you get so many other great things. 8 is Slowthai with Ugly. This was actually a little bit lower on my list before revisiting it this week. It came out in the early part of 2023, so I've had quite a long time to sit with it. But I feel like this record is one of the best depictions of a mental state I've ever heard. Slowthai is so clear in defining what he's going through mentally, his troubles and struggles, and I can really empathize with his frustrations and anger at the world. The opening track, Yum, is this very aggressive look into some of slowthai's vices, and I feel like it's a perfect tone setter for the record. The album almost follows the stages of grief, as the record starts with this anger and moves further in a sadder direction as it goes along. There are elements of hip-hop on here, industrial music, shoegaze, and post-punk, and I think slowthai blended all of these sounds together in a masterful way. It's very rare that I like to listen to a record front to back and just hear every song. Usually there's one or two that take me out of the experience, but in this case, that did not happen. slowthai's Ugly is an incredible album, and if you're a fan of any of the genres I mentioned, it's a must listen. 7 is JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown with Scaring the Hoes. I feel like an absolute degenerate human being for having this record this high on the list, but I think that's exactly how Peggy and Danny want their fans to feel. When you have two of the most eccentric personalities in hip-hop team up for an album, this is the result you're gonna get. Banger after banger. If you're into industrial hip-hop or experimental hip-hop in general, this is the ultimate record for you. I mean, you've definitely heard it already if you clicked on this video. But yeah, love some of the outrageous songs on here, but my favorite part of this record is the crazy synthy production. Number 6 is Caroline Polachek's Desire I Want to Turn Into You. I can't describe this album as anything other than pop perfection. Every hook is well calculated to be an earworm for the next 20 days for you. They're so explosive and grandiose. And of course, Caroline can hit notes that you didn't even think existed. She has an incredible voice, and when you have that kind of talent and mix it with these cohesive ideas and concept, you have an amazing record. Same thing with the slowthai record. This is one I can play front to back. No song takes me out of it, and it's one of my most listened to of this year. Into the top 5, we have Genesis Owusu with Struggler. Before this record, Genesis Owusu was kind of just known as another good alternative R&B record, but after listening to this, I feel like he can be so much more. The sounds are super spacey for an R&B record. It kind of reminds me of early Weekend production, except much faster paced. I really love the blends of synth pop on this, and the subject matter with Genesis playing this Roach character was really interesting to me. I'm not sure exactly what it represents as a whole, but I definitely found the alias interesting and think it's something he can expand on. And the album also explores themes of poverty, police brutality, things like that. So I sort of feel like the Roach is him sort of just like scurrying around for his life all the time. But yeah, love the concept, love the songs on this. It's an incredible album. Number 4 is Zach Bryan's Self-Titled. If you told me I was gonna have a mainstream country album in my top 5 at the beginning of this year, I would have slapped you across the face because I would have not believed you. However, Zach Bryan's songwriting is so unique and creative that it just had me addicted to this album for a very long time. I'm still addicted to it. There's a certain ambiguity to Zach Bryan's writing that leaves his lyrics up to interpretation, and I think that's a really unique thing for country. In a genre that's so straightforward and in your face with what it's talking about, I think leaving his lyrics up to interpretation is exactly what country needs. It makes the genre very interesting, and I think Zach Bryan's going to be a very influential artist within that sphere in the next couple years. At number 3, we have Jeff Rosenstock with Hell Mode. If progressive pop punk wasn't a thing before, it definitely is now. You think of a song like Future is Dumb on this record, you look at the time and it's only 3 minutes, but it feels like he created a 7-minute pop punk track. And that is a good thing, not a bad thing. He just takes his songs in all these different directions that you don't know what they're gonna go into. However, my favorite part of this record is the way he's able to convey his frustrations mentally in these super anthemic and noisy hooks. I saw Jeff live a few years ago back in 2021, and I'm seeing him live again next year in 2024, so I cannot wait for that. I'm gonna be jumping up and down singing along to all the songs on this record. If you've never heard of Jeff, please go check out his music. You could start with this album. I think you'll love it if you're a fan of rock, indie rock, pop punk, any of those. You'll like this album. Number 2 is McKinley Dixon with Beloved Jazz Paradise. This album fiddles with jazz rap in a way that I haven't really heard before. It almost sounds like McKinley is rapping along to a live band. That's how clean most of the production on this album is. On top of that, the lyrics are absolutely captivating. Similar to the Genesis Owusu record, there's many lyrics about poverty and growing up that way. You think of a song like Run 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 and the messages really stick with you. Not being able to even go to a park without seeing a gun and fearing for your life. There are multiple powerful messages like this across the album, and despite being 9 songs and very short, it leaves you completely satiated, and I can't wait to see what this guy does next. And finally, number 1, my album of the year, my most listened to album of the year, it's the Lemon Twigs with Everything Harmony. I have been absolutely addicted to this record since I've heard it. It is literally just perfect for any season. And the weird part is, usually in this spot, I like to include an album that really pushes genre boundaries and is doing something new. But this record isn't doing anything new at all. However, it is perfecting an old style and that 70s soft rock. It's so hooky and vibey and fun. You can sing along to every track. The songwriting, just the way they string their words together, is incredible to me. It's another one that has no skips. I listen to every song on this album every time I spin it. And I'm gonna end this video with a steaming hot take. I like this record better than any Beatles album I've heard before. I'm sorry. I like the Beatles. I know, I understand. They're probably the most important band of all time, and there's no way in hell the Lemon Twigs would exist without the Beatles. However, maybe it's the new technology and microphones and production equipment that we have that the Beatles didn't have, but this album it just brings so much joy to my ears. The dopamine rush that I get while listening to this record cannot be explained in words. Anyway, guys, like I said, there is a playlist linked down below with my favorite song from each of these albums. Please let me know what your favorite albums of the year were. Click like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and don't forget to check out my top 50 singles of 2023 that dropped last week. Without further ado, guys, I'm going to let you go. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.